Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the Real Hatfield Town here on Football Manager 2021. Or should I say good afternoon, good evening, because this is the surrogate stream for this weekend. I am away this week. I am spending much needed time with family and friends, so I won't be streaming, but I will be in the chat. So if you're here, feel free to say hi. I'll probably remember at this moment in the video to say hi back, and I might just type hi and just have it ready. But yeah, we got an exciting game ready for us today. We're playing Colney Heath in the Spartan South Midlands League Challenge Trophy first round. And if I check Colney Heath, they are in the Spartan South Midlands League Premier Division. So they are the league above us right now. I think in real life, they're looking at getting promoted as part of this restructuring that's going on at the moment. But it'll be an interesting test for us. We've got some interesting matches ahead of us for sure, and this is the first of those. Back to the schedule though. So last episode we played Berkhamsted Raiders here in the league, and then we played Hamble in the cup, and we just about snuck it. 5-4 in the end. We had a player sent off, they had a player sent off, they had a player score a hat-trick, Adalberto Pinto. We had Baker score twice, Akinyemi scoring I think his first competitive goal for us, I want to say. No, he scored twice in the match before. Dummy. But yeah, scored his third competitive goal for us. Plus, Akram got us off to a cracking start, and Hudson Doncaster scored a good goal as well. Since then, I beat Hillingdon 5-1 with 4 goals from Akinyemi and a goal from Christian Sadie, grabbing his first for the club. And in fact, I was tempted to show you guys the highlights of the goals, but there's so many of them. Plus, they got one back as well, which is quite disappointing. We had 101 fans watching that game, by the way. That's an incredible achievement. But yes, now we're playing Colney Heath in the Spartan South Midlands League Challenge Trophy. First round. I think that's the end of that title. And then we've got Wokingham. Wokingham. I think there is a place called Wokingham, but we're not playing them. We're playing Wokingham in the FA Vars second qualifying round, which will be Tuesday's episode. So, let's get into the game. Not much to say, really. We're going to do most, if not all, of the tweaks here. We won't do this one, though. Focus play down the right, sure. I believe removing this instruction. Oh, he wants to remove it. Gotcha. Would exploit... This one didn't make sense to me. It said focus play down the right, and then I believe removing this instruction. But I didn't read that bit. I just said I believe this instruction would help exploit our strength on the left side of the pitch. How does that make sense? But no, removing the focus down the right. I don't know if that's something I want to stick with forever, but I'll try it out this time. We're going to go back to the primary team, but with some changes still. So first of all, Akinyemi is coming in instead of Jacob, and I am going to start Emptage still. Evans and Harding are both carrying knocks still, so Evans is going to be... Who am I looking for? Hollis. There we go. And then we'll swap Hollis with Tuttle. Like so. And then Gadger for Harding as a straight swap. Although these two need to be that way round. There we go. I'm actually going to save this. 4, 2, whoops. 3, 1, primary. Actually, I'm just going to call this secondary. I don't think we have a secondary, do we? No. Good. I was going to call it primary 2, and then I realised that's basically secondary. I'm going to put Sadie... Actually, yeah. No, I am going to do that. But what I'm going to do first is move Akram out for Studholme, who's currently still carrying a knock. You are a personalised winger support. And then Studholme's going to drop out and Sadie's going to come in. I don't know, by the way, if it's possible to have the bench on the side here. I'm sure it used to be on the side here, so you could just drag people in and out. Because my squad screen's quite big right now. I need to move people in and out of the under-23s. Because right now it's very difficult to actually find what I'm looking for a lot of the time. So we've still got Harding on the bench. Am I happy with that? I think so. In case of emergencies is basically why he's there. We've got Batten as well, who'll most likely come on. So yeah, the lineup is going to be Extents in goal, Argent, Sadler, Tuttle, Emptage across the back, Gadger and Hammond in midfield, Chowdhury, Akram Chowdhury, Hudson Doncaster and Gonzalez Velasco across the advanced midfield. Gonzalez Velasco is currently in talks with another club, and I tried to convince him to stay, but he wanted obscene money, so that's not happening. Hopefully he'll reject them, though, for the same reason. And then Baker up front. Benches Ruiz, Hollis, Harding, Batten, Sadie, Afsar and Dipo Akinyemi. I'm pretty happy. Let's go play some football. So Dipo doesn't like having the ball being passed into space, and yet 3 of his goals came from a ball over the top that he ran onto. Interesting, that. Very, very interesting. We're in the 3rd kit as well. Favourites for a reason. Let's go. I love this kit. I am changing this kit for Season 3, but for Seasons 1 and 2 at least, it's been a very, very nice kit to see. Straight away with the long ball there out to Akram then. Passes it back to Argent. He goes forward down the channel. One of the goals we scored, in fact, I think it was the first goal we scored, was a lovely ball like that from Argent into the path of Akram, who took it right to the byline, pulled it back, and it was a simple tap-in for Akinyemi. It was such a good goal. I'm wondering where that's been all season. I think allowing them to play the support role rather than the attack role gives them a little bit more creative freedom. They're not having to take it to the byline all the time. They're able to cross as and when they choose. And it really did make a difference. Very, very good goal. Very well taken. I was very happy. Might even be a goal of the season contender. I don't know. For this season's goal of the season contender, I'm going to go with... I might start making notes at some point, actually, because it won't just be goals that were scored on stream. It will just be any goal. So I might have to record some clips and send them over to my brother. Yeah, I want to include all good goals, basically, rather than just the ones that we see live. Gonzalez Velasco with the ball in. Akram's header. What a bullet header that was. I thought Baker missing it was the end of that chance, but he comes flying in. Came off the post as well. What a start that was to the game. 1 minute 29, I think, on the clock. We score the opening goal. Let's see this again. So Emptage on the ball. Passes it beautifully down the line. Gonzalez Velasco takes it right to the line there. Crosses it in. Yeah, kisses the post on the way in. What a finish that was. 1-0 to the Stags. Great stuff. Alrighty, so I actually have some conversation topics for this video, which is something I don't do in this series very often. But I figured I haven't got people in the chat this week. Or at least not while I'm recording this. So I will try and come up with some things to fill the hour and 20 or however long it takes for me to record these. So I wanted to start off by talking about the Super League, which I know is a contentious topic. First of all, I am very much against the Super League. I think it was a stupid idea set up by some dinosaur clubs who refuse to admit that they're not the best in the world anymore. And it's something that angers me about football in general, to be honest. And I'll choose my words carefully, but I'll come to that in a second. So the Super League is probably the worst thing to have happened to football since Lampard's shot crossed the line in South Africa. The introduction of goal line technology, which I think was a good thing, by the way. What I don't understand about the Super League is why these clubs thought they could just do what they like and get away with it. So let's talk about the Big Six in England, because I don't know how the other leagues work. I don't know how La Liga and Serie A, and that was it, wasn't it? No other countries were involved, which is also a little bit weird. But yeah, I don't know how their leagues work, whether there is a difference or not. But I am missing some teams, aren't I? Oh no, I've got all the leagues. But here in the UK, Tottenham, Arsenal, and to an extent Man United aren't really that competitive at the moment. Tottenham and Arsenal definitely not. Man United have the ability. They're in the Europa League final this season, and I think they will go on to win it, especially against Villarreal. I think it'll be a bit of a walkover. But they're not the club they think they are. Let's put it that way. They are not the club they think they are. And I'm talking specifically about the owners here. The fans. Some fans are delusional. Every club has a fan that's delusional. So I'm not going to criticise the fans. And I think the way the fans reacted to the Super League was spot on. You know, protest the hell out of it, basically. But don't take it too far like some people did. Anyway. Tottenham and Arsenal, to even assume that they would be part of this so-called Big Six. For me, if you want to go by merit, Tottenham shouldn't have been anywhere near it. You should have had a team like Aston Villa or Nottingham Forest. Sorry, they don't like being called Notts. Nottingham Forest. Because, Nottingham Forest are 2-time European Cup winners. Tottenham aren't. It beggars belief how those two managed to be invited to this thing. I don't know whether they invited themselves and everyone just didn't want to say no, or if they were asked. Who asked them? That's the even more confusing thing. And it comes to this issue of fans around the world. I see this a lot on Facebook, and I see this a lot on Twitter and Instagram, in fact, in the comment section on posts. There are people from around the world who are fans of the club. I'm not disputing that. They wear the shirt, they talk about the club, that's fine, but they don't necessarily know the daily goings on. So they talk about players who left the club 3 years ago, and they talk about them as if they're still there. And then they argue with everyone who counteracts their points, call them clueless, say they don't know what they're talking about. And are those really the kinds of people you want to attract through something like a Super League? Because they talked about these legacy fans and how they're not interested in legacy fans. They're not interested in people who grew up in the shadow of the stadium. They want to attract people who are casual fans, basically. I think they called them 21st century fans or something stupid like that, modern fans. And sure, they might occasionally watch a match, but they're not going to watch consistently. And it'll get to the point where the TV broadcasters will notice they're not watching consistently, and they'll pull the plug, and then it all collapses that way. The billions and billions of pounds that these clubs were promised, I don't think was ever going to materialise. They were being funded by banks who themselves probably wouldn't be able to cope with it. And the whole thing was just doomed to failure from the start. Which is why the 6 clubs in England pulled out, really. The fan reaction, the fact that it was misled. They were all misled. They were promised one thing and delivered another. And yeah, they did the right thing by pulling out, but I still think they should be punished for even having the audacity to attempt it in the first place. I don't know whether a points deduction is necessarily fair, because it's not the players' faults and it's not the fans' faults, but financial implications, for sure. They should be fined. I think, in terms of UEFA, I think they should be banned from UEFA competition for a season. And at that point, I don't care about the fans and I don't care about the players. They should be banned from UEFA competitions because they didn't want to play in the Champions League anymore. So they shouldn't be allowed to play in the Champions League anymore. Arsenal have done the decent thing by finishing low enough down the table that they're not in contention for a UEFA tournament anyway. But the other teams, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, they should be banned from all UEFA competition for a season, at least a season, maybe 2. They should be fined. I think the Premier League should take half of their prize money away. And the problem with that is you then get lawyers involved, and that becomes messy. But this is an idea. They should have half their TV money taken away, and that TV money should be distributed evenly, not by merit, but distributed evenly to all Football League clubs. So every club in the Football League gets the same amount of money from these fines. I think that's the fairest, best way to do it. It paints the Premier League in a good light. It paints the Football League in a good light. And it helps some of the smaller clubs who've been struggling this year. And at that point, they're not... The big 6 who've done this aren't losing anything. They're just not being given something. And I think, again, it's probably the fairest way to punish a team like this, and it hits them where it hurts. They wanted to set up the Super League for money, so let's take the money away from them. And problem solved at that point. What are they going to do? They will take it to a Madrid court, I'm sure, because there seems to be a court in Madrid that thinks they rule the world. But besides that, I think it's the fairest solution to stop this from happening again, because I think it was an incredibly selfish, delusional, insanity-driven decision to create this Super League, and quite rightly it was shut down immediately. The fan protests, as I said, the Chelsea ones were the ones that I think were the best ones, because they literally scared the club into producing paperwork on that night. The Man U one I don't agree with, because I don't think you should ever break into a building that's locked. You know, that's not how you get heard. That's how you ruin your message rather than enforce it. And yeah, I think Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus should be kicked out of UEFA tournaments for at least 5 years, for the sole reason that they're continuing to try and do this. And I think in terms of their domestic leagues, they should maybe... I don't know if you can ban a club from a league for a season, because it creates an unbalanced league at that point, especially if it's an odd number of teams. But maybe they should be exempt from winning the title. So even if Juventus came top of the league next season, second place would win the title. So their matches still count. It still dictates the result of the league, but they shouldn't be allowed to win it, because they've brought the game into disrepute. They've completely rained on what is a well-respected tournament, should we say. Any league in any country in the world is a well-respected tournament and should be given the respect it deserves. And this isn't the first time Juventus have been found to bring their league into disrepute, and they should be punished accordingly. But again, there'll be some court in Madrid somewhere. I really don't understand that. Why? I know that, you know, lawyers, solicitors, they're always opportunists. They're always looking to make a quick buck. But how are they able to take something like this to a court in Madrid and have them decide that FIFA and UEFA can't do anything to stop this league from happening? Two organisations that aren't even based in Spain. One's based in Switzerland. I think UEFA are based... I want to say Switzerland as well, actually. But I could be wrong. Maybe they're based in France. But I don't think a court in Madrid should have any jurisdiction over anything to do with FIFA. It's a completely different thing. But apparently that's a thing. They did that, and yeah. The cowards as well. They did all this. They run half the documents through the court before they even announced the Super League, because they knew there would be conflict. And absolute cowards, in my opinion. Absolute cowards. And it makes me really angry to think that there are people out there who would put money before fans. You've got so many good clubs in this country. Leicester winning the FA Cup yesterday. Imagine if Leicester had been involved in something like that. And I know they would never be involved in something like that. But imagine if that had happened. What that would do to the city of Leicester. And the fact that... I'm really disappointed that Chelsea and Man City got involved in this, because they didn't need to. Man United, they hemorrhage money. You know, anything to make money they would do. Liverpool apparently couldn't afford half of the things last year. They had to put their staff on furlough until that got protested against, and then they quickly backed down. They keep claiming they can't sign any players because they've got no money. So I can understand why they jumped on as well, because again, chance to make a quick buck. Tottenham and Arsenal, just morally bankrupt, both of them. But yeah, Chelsea and Man City, I just don't understand why. City especially. And Guardiola summed it up very, very well in his press conference that week, where what is the point of joining a competition where there is no competition? That's not sport. At that point, you're not doing sport. You're not playing a sport. It's like an invitational event, basically. And we've all seen sports events where it's an invitational. No one really takes it seriously, apart from maybe one tryhard who pops up and has to try and win it, and maybe they start a fight with someone. But, I mean, they're the events I've watched. I don't know about you guys. Everyone else, they just don't take it seriously. They don't compete. And that's what this Super League is. It's not a competition. It's 12 going up to 15 dinosaur clubs who assume they're still the greatest in the world, despite the fact they've probably owed more money than they've received over the last 10 to 15 years. And then you've got 5 clubs who are invited, who in some ways will be flattered to be there and will probably accept the invitation for that reason, but will also feel slightly threatened, like they're being picked on by the bigger bullies, and that's why they accept it. And it was so stupid. And the fact that they're now saying, oh, you can't ban us from our leagues, but you can, especially the Premier League, because they breached the rule. You're not allowed to join another competition during the season without the Premier League's approval. And yeah, I really do hope they get the books thrown at them. And, I'm not a Chelsea fan. My mum's a Chelsea fan, so I do kind of support Chelsea from time to time. Excuse me. But I really hope they get the book thrown at them as well. Not on. It ruins football. It really does ruin football. And this isn't the first time this has happened. I'm sure it's not the last time this will happen. And people talk about the Premier League being the foundation of this, where clubs broke away and formed their own league. And I wasn't really alive when that happened. I was born in 93, so 92 was the first season in the Premier League, so I don't know what happened. I might go read up on it one day. All I can talk about is what's happening now, and the Premier League is still not the best in many cases, they do get greedy when it comes to TV rights. They don't necessarily evenly distribute prize money. They were very reluctant to bail out the Football League during the pandemic. And there are a lot of fingers to be pointed there as well. But I still think the way the Premier League have acted is still a lot better than the way the Super League have acted. And that there is a difference. And that doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. But it's about doing the right things at the right time. And the Premier League are improving. And they're admitting that they've made mistakes. And they are working to fix those mistakes. And that, to me, is a big, big difference. We're going to talk about the match for a little bit. What's going on the screen here. And then I'll get back to talking about the next conversation topic that I had. This might be offside here against Baker. Yes. He was in front of Gonzalez Velasco there. Not really sure what their goalkeeper was doing, but hey-ho. Where are we at then? So we're coming up to 20 minutes on the clock. We're in the 20th minute now. Still 1-0. Still just that goal from Akram being the difference. I'll check the stats, actually, because I haven't seen... We've had 6 shots, 5 on target. So our chance conversion, or at least for shots on target, is getting a lot better. I'd like to score some more out of those chances, or at least reduce the number of chances to make the ratio a little bit better. Because right now it's like 10% maybe, which is really low, like really low. But maybe that's just me being really critical still. We got Argent in the book. I didn't actually see the challenge he was booked for, whether it was a good one or not. Whether it was a cynical foul or whether it was a bit of a dangerous play. Don't know. Not a clue. But that was a good throw from Argent to find Akram. He tries to cross it in, comes back off the right back, and is cleared for another throw. So again, we're going for the world record for number of throw-ins during a game of football. We're racking these up, believe me. So the next topic I want to talk about is armchair fans, which might sound weird. But again, I mentioned it earlier. You have fans around not just the world, but in this country too, who claim to be fans of football clubs, but don't really know anything about the teams they claim to support. Now, there are people I know very, very well who are these types of people. But an example I'll give is Stevenage announced their retained release list yesterday. At the time of me recording this, I'm recording this on the Sunday. So yesterday, the Saturday, that list was announced. And the whole point of a retained released list is to see who's staying and who's going. And by released, we mean their contracts are coming to an end and they're not being renewed, essentially. Or in some players' cases, they might have had a 2-year deal, and at the end of the first year, it was deemed they weren't good enough, so they're released from their contract. In other words, they're terminated, they're let go. That means they go for free. That means they're a free agent, they can talk to any club they like and sign on a free transfer. The number of fans in the comments demanding to know why we were selling players. But we're not. We're not selling players. And this might sound really pedantic, but that really, really, really winds me up. Especially angry football fans who, it's very obvious, don't have a clue what they're talking about. People demanding to know why we're selling players. There were 5 players who we're still in talks with. So they've not left yet. They've also not agreed to stay yet. And people were demanding to know why we're letting them go. And people were replying saying, we're not. We're still in talks with them. And yeah, people, yeah. And I don't claim to know everything about football. I don't know how football clubs work. I'm hoping to learn how football clubs work, particularly through this partnership with Hatfield Town. Obviously, it's not professional football clubs still, semi-pro. But just learning the ins and outs so I know what I'm talking about in some of these videos. But it really winds me up, things like that. And the one I really want to talk about is VAR, the offside law, and the new handball law that was brought in partway through this season. Now I'm going to tell you what my interpretations are of the offside law and the handball law. And I might get some things wrong, so bear with me, and I don't want to become a hypocrite, but to my understanding, the handball law was changed very specifically as to whether you're an attacking team or a defending team. And the problem I have with VAR isn't the technology. The technology works perfectly. My problem with VAR is the people who are using it, and my real bugbear with VAR is the people who complain about it, who don't understand what it's there for. So let's start with the offside law, because we were just given offside there. Let's start with the offside law. So the offside law is very simple in terms of explanation, but the permutations and combinations that can lead to offside are a little bit more complicated. But basically, the offside law is 2 players on the defending team must be between the receiving player and the goal at the point in which the pass is made. So, I wish I had diagrams to help me here, but say, for example, Hudson Doncaster has the ball, passes it to Baker. If there are 2 defending players between Baker and the goal at the time in which Hudson Doncaster made the pass, so at the point in which contact is made, the pass is initiated, if 2 players on the defending team are between Baker and the goal, Baker is deemed to be onside. That is pretty much the case in 90% of offside cases. There is one exception, and this is the one that people don't understand. If the ball is played and the receiving player is behind the ball, so in other words, further away from the goal they're attacking than the ball is, at the point in which the ball is played, it doesn't matter how many players there are between you and the goal, you are onside. It has nothing to do with the direction in which the ball travels. And I see this so many times on Facebook especially. People saying, how can he be offside when the ball travelled backwards? That is not the law. The law is where you are in relation to the ball, not the direction that the ball travels in. You can be behind the ball when it's played. The ball can travel forwards and you will still be onside because you are behind the ball. It's a bit like rugby. So in rugby, you're not allowed to pass the ball forwards. So basically, if you're behind the ball, at which point the ball is passed, you are fine. And I think, I'm trying to remember what offside is in rugby now. Offside. My girlfriend's a rugby fan. She could probably tell me. But I used to play rugby as well, and I had a perfectly good try disallowed because apparently I was in front of the ball and it was passed to me, despite the fact I wasn't. It's one of the reasons I don't like rugby. Anyway, the offside law is 2 players, and that includes the goalkeeper, by the way. So sometimes you might see the goalkeeper come rushing out, and there might still be 2 defenders, at which point it's onside. Sometimes the keeper might rush out, and it no longer becomes onside because there's only 1 player. It might be a defender who ran back on the line. There are, as I said, lots of different combinations. Now, the bit where it gets a bit confusing is first and second phases of play. They've tried to clarify it a little bit more. I still don't 100% understand it myself. But there are points in which, say the defender tries to clear the ball and it bounces off an attacking player and lands at the feet of another attacker. To my knowledge, if a deliberate move is made by the attacking player to redirect the ball into the path of his teammate, that is offside. But if the attempted clearance just ricochets off someone and lands at the feet of an attacking player and a goal is scored, that is deemed to be onside if it's accidental. And this applies to the handball law in a second that I'll talk about as well. And there was a goal that was scored, was it Gabriel Jesus scored a goal this season or last season where everyone was saying, how is that not offside? And I believe that's where this law was first rediscovered. I think it's always existed, but it's never really been needed until now. And it's to do with if a defender deliberately clears the ball. And again, this applies more to handball, so I'll start segueing into the handball law as well. You remember the Champions League final, Tottenham versus Liverpool, where Mane, I think it was, in the opening minute of the game, kicked the ball against Sissoko's arm, and it was given as a penalty for handball. That rule, that law, and I will say law because these are laws of football, they're not rules of football, which is something else that people say incorrectly as they talk about the rules. There are no rules, they are the laws of football. That incident of a defending player can deliberately kick the ball against an attacking player in order to win a free kick. So whether it's for an offside, whether it's for a handball. Now, to my understanding now, the offside law is if it's an accidental... Oh, Baker with the goal. That's going to make it into the highlights now. That's a really nice finish. Akram with the assist. Right, hang on. Let me talk about this goal, and then I'll get back to my point. Because I need to form what I'm going to say in my head anyway. So yeah, throw in from Argent. Throws it to Akram. That's a really nice touch. And then he just pulls it across the box. Baker with a simple tap in. Beautiful finish. 31st minute. 2-0 to the Stags. And as you can see here, he is onside because the goalkeeper and Hall are between Baker and the goal. The ball does travel forward and Baker was in front of the ball. So you do at that point rely on the number of players, but he's perfectly onside because there were 2 defending players, including the goalkeeper, between him and the goal. And that's a very good example as to how to play a player onside. But yeah, if you deliberately kick the ball off an opposing player in order to gain an advantage, so whether it's to win a free kick, whether it's to make them be offside, to get a handball decision, the laws have now been changed, so that's no longer the case. And I think the offside one was always that, but the handball law has now been changed. And that's something that people don't know. So if a defender kicks the ball off of an attacker and it lands at their teammate's feet and they score, and they would otherwise be in an offside position, it's no longer offside. And people need to learn these laws, because there's a lot of outrage and a lot of threats on social media are sent because people don't understand what it is they're talking about. And that sums up life in general, but football especially. There's a lot of talk at the moment about social media abuse, not just racism, but threats of violence as well against people for decisions that are made on the pitch, whether it's by a player or a referee. And none of it is necessary. Let's be clear here, none of it's necessary, even if an incorrect decision was made. But if a correct decision is made by a referee based on the laws of football, and wow, what a freak. Wow, okay, hang on, we'll have to talk about this as well. But what a free kick that was from Hall. 30-yarder right in the top corner. Yeah, we're in for a game here, everyone. I can't speak now even. We're in for a game here. What a free kick this is. He's just whipped that over the wall. Top left corner. Extents did get his hands to it, but not enough to keep it out. Very good finish. Yeah, we're in a match now. What was my point? So yeah, the laws of football. Incorrect decisions do happen still. VAR even can't be involved in making sure every decision is correct. And even VAR is a very subjective system, which I'll talk about in a second, and how we could perhaps fix that. But it's absolutely... I'm someone anyway who has a low tolerance for BS. I have a very low tolerance for stupidity as well. Like a really low tolerance. I do a lot of online quizzing, and I'm sure you can tell from my videos, I like being right about things. So whenever I'm wrong about things, I get just as angry with myself. But I watch a lot of quizzes on TV too. And a lot of the time I'm thinking, who are these morons? Who let these people out? I just don't like stupidity. And I see a lot of stupidity on social media, particularly from people who they claim to have been football fans for 60, 70 years, and yet they've at no point thought to actually read on the laws of football. And this comes nicely into VAR. So, what is VAR? That's the first question. VAR is Video Assistant Referee. So, it is not the cameras that look at the replays. It's not the system that draws the lines. That's not VAR. VAR is the person who sits behind the computer at Stockley Park and reviews the footage. So in rugby, you have a video referee. In cricket, you have the third umpire who sits up in a box somewhere, I can't remember where, in the ground, and they watch the replays. And cricket is a very good example as to how technology can be used to benefit the sport, but cricket is a very slow process. Rugby even is a very slow process. I remember watching not the World Cup final that England won, but the one after that, where we lost to South Africa, I think it was. And we had a try ruled out for a knock-on. Actually, was it a knock-on, or was it the ball didn't make contact with the ground? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it went to the video replays. And that felt like an eternity before that decision was made. Now, clearly football can't operate like that, so they tried to speed up the process a little bit with VAR. Sometimes there are big gaps in VAR, and sometimes fans need to realise why those gaps exist. But VAR is not the technology. VAR is the person who uses the technology. And there, for me, is the issue. Current referees are also VARs. So they will officiate a match on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday, they will be the VAR for a match. Now, the problem with that is, say there's an on-field decision that is made on the Saturday by a referee. They might give a penalty, they might give a handball, they might issue a red card, whatever it might be. And that decision will always go to VAR in those instances. Oh, hang on, before I talk about VAR again, there are exceptions to the offside rule. I forgot to mention those. The offside law, sorry, force of habit. Offside law. So you can't be offside from a throw-in, a corner, so long as it's kicked directly to you, and a goal kick. And again, Stevenage fan, going to the terraces every week to watch Stevenage play. A number of times I see fans protest offside from a throw-in. I thought it was obvious that you can't be offside from a throw-in. And I've actually turned around and told people this in the past. You can't be offside from a throw-in, a corner, or a goal kick. I don't quite know what the reason is from a goal kick. I guess it's because by the time the ball reaches you, the defender's probably goal side of you anyway. But a corner is because 99% of the time the ball's travelling backwards anyway, so you're always behind the ball at the point in which it's kicked, so you just can't be offside from that. And a throw-in, why would you want to hinder a throw-in anymore? I already think that throw-ins are the worst things in football anyway, so why make that any worse than it needs to be? But yeah, those are the 3 exceptions that I'm aware of. There may be other exceptions. Now we've got the ricochet laws coming in as well. That might change things up. But those are the 3 main exceptions for the offside law. So yeah, back to VAR. So VAR is the person who sits behind the desk. And they might give a decision on the Saturday that when it comes to the match on the Sunday, when they're watching the replays, they might think in their head, that's probably not a red card. But I gave one yesterday. So if I'm now overruling that decision, am I now saying that my decision the day prior was the wrong one? In which case that will count against me. And I think referees, they might not have this be a proactive thought in their head, but I think it does come into play at various points when they're making decisions, especially when they're operating the VAR. But I can also imagine the opposite happens. There'll be a referee who's a VAR on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday they're out on the pitch and they're thinking, even if they're invited to look at the monitor, they might be thinking, well, I didn't give this yesterday when I was in the booth, so how can I give it today when I'm on the field, even though I'm seeing the replay? The problem for me is not the technology, it is the people who are using it. And I think there is a solution to this. Right now there are ex-referees who are perfectly capable still of enforcing the laws of football. Most referees retire because they can't keep up with the speed of the game anymore. But they still know the laws, they still know what they're doing. I think ex-referees should be employed as VAR officials. And I think there should be a 2-man team operating in the VAR booth, made up of an ex-referee and an ex-player. So at that point, they're having a conversation where both sides of the argument are explored. Right now, it is only referees who make these decisions. And it comes from a refereeing standpoint of following the letter of the law perfectly. And I think sometimes you do need to have that subjective opposing view from a player, saying, you know, when, especially for handball decisions in the box, if the ball strikes the arm, if it's kicked and strikes the arm in less than a second, how are you supposed to move your arm out of the way? And I think sometimes you need to, a player's perspective on that to make the right decision. And I think it should be a 2-man team that operates in the booth, and each pair that operate in the booth should be assigned to a referee, much like a referee has aligned, what's the term? So for World Cups, I don't know if this is still the case in the Premier League, but for the World Cups and other international tournaments, actually, a referee is always given the same assistant referees throughout the tournament, unless there are injuries or illnesses or anything like that. So it'll always be a referee and 2 assistant referees. 9 times out of 10, they'll be from the same country. Sometimes that's not always the case. And that's their team. The 4th official will change, because again, that's normally a serving referee from the tournament who also acts as a 4th official. But I think for the Premier League, it should be a referee, his 2 assistants or her 2 assistants, and then a VAR team. They should all be one combined team. Now, you might be saying, how does that make the law consistent then, if it's still people's opinions? I think it's a case of a referee will no longer be thinking about, did they make that decision when they were in the VAR box, because they're not allowed in the VAR box anymore. You've got a 2-man team working in the VAR box to make sure that the decision is made for the correct reasons. And if you have the same referees working with the same VAR officials, you will always have the same interpretation of the law in certain situations. So, for example, if you've got... let me think of some examples. If you've got... I'm trying to think of referees now. If you've got Paul Tierney on the pitch, and you've got Andy Madley in the VAR box, and then the next week you've got Madley out on the pitch and you've got Mike Dean in the box, you're not getting the same decisions. You're not getting the same people talking about the same decisions. And the whole point of VAR is the referee talks to the VAR official, and the VAR official talks to the referee. If it's the same team, they're all on the same wavelength. They all know what they're thinking. They've worked together before. And I think it will help create similar outcomes to similar situations. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know whether that would work unless we actually trial it. But I think ex-referees have still got a lot to give, and they should be utilised. And I think ex-players, there's a lot of talk at the moment about ex-players becoming referees. I think this is a good gateway for them. Have them operate as VAR officials, first and foremost, and then start training them up to actually go out on the pitch and become referees. Whether they have to start slightly further down the pyramid once they get their refereeing qualifications, or whether they can go straight into the Premier League, I don't know. But I think that's a good way of doing it. It keeps former players active, it keeps former referees active. It keeps the laws of the game protected, let's say. Because right now we're constantly changing the handball law, which I think is really stupid. And I will talk about the handball law in the second half, because we're coming to the end of the first half here now. But there's so much about football right now that people are saying football is dying because of VAR. I argue the opposite. I think football died a long time ago because of refereeing decisions. I think VAR was a last resort to try and stop that from being the case. And I think back to 2010, and I joked about it earlier, but Frank Lampard's shot that crossed the line against Germany, it might not have changed the outcome of the game. We might have lost 4-2 instead of 4-1. But when you're playing in an international tournament like that, and you have a linesman who didn't see that the ball crossed the line, despite the fact me, thousands of miles away, saw that it did on TV, that's when goal line technology finally was taken seriously. It had been pitched years before, and it was deemed unfeasible. And once that happened on the international stage, FIFA then started paying attention. We shouldn't have to get to that stage before these things become necessities. It should be trial it somewhere, come up with the idea, trial it somewhere. If it works, trial it elsewhere. And if that works, roll it out. That's what it should be. But I think we mess around too much still with football because we talk about the traditions of football. If we're going to go back to the traditions of football, the only match that should ever be broadcast in a season is the FA Cup final, because that's what the tradition used to be. Sometimes you have to let go of traditions in order to progress. And a lot of people who talk about VAR killing the game, these are the traditionalists who, if they had their way, it would only be the FA Cup final that gets broadcast on TV. So, I'm a modern day football fan, you know. I am still a legacy fan, don't get me wrong. But I'm a modern day football fan, and I hate to see that, actually, in my opinion, fans are killing the game more than anything else right now. And I'll talk about that in a second as well. We are 2-1 up at half time. It was a pretty decent first half. We had expected goals of 1.83 and we scored. They had a 0.05 and they scored. It was a really, really good free kick. Average positions are about to be about as expected. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, happy with the performance so far. Akram and Baker with the goals. They might get subbed off. Akram especially, because he's looking a little bit knackered. I'll give him some time in the second half, but we'll see how he goes. But yeah, to talk about fans killing football, that's what I want to talk about. So, fans dictate decisions, for sure. On-field decisions with referees. One thing I haven't missed during the lockdown and fans not being allowed in stadiums is fans booing when VAR decisions are made. I feel like that rushes the decision when fans start getting on the referee's back. And in general, like especially at places like Old Trafford, fans have always dictated refereeing decisions, whether it's penalties, whether it's red cards, anything. And you can't say that's not true. Fans always play a part. Referees don't want to be seen to favourite anyone, and I'm sure they don't. But at the same time, it's no coincidence that you get these big decisions at bigger grounds. It's just a fact of life. That wasn't a good ball from Argent. This whole VAR thing, I liked what commentators have started doing. So again, as well as a Stevenage fan, I'm a Newcastle fan. We played Manchester City on Friday. 2 huge decisions were made using VAR. One was that Ferran Torres was onside for his first goal. I actually thought he was offside, looking at it first time, and I had my arm up and I said offside. But as soon as I saw the replay, and as soon as I saw the lines were being drawn, you realise he's onside. And at that point, you've got no argument. You can start talking about defending and things like that, but that's your own team at that point. You can't argue with the decision. It was the right decision. And it didn't take that long to make it, to be fair. They might have seen a couple more replays than needed, but that's just to sort of back up that they are making the right decision. And the right decision was made, and I agree with it. And we lost the game because of it, but I don't care, because the right decision was made. Same with the penalty decision. Now, my dad and my brother didn't think it was a foul by Ake on Joel Linton. I thought it was. So even in our house, we're all 3 Newcastle fans, and we didn't agree on the decision. Originally, I thought Sir Maximan was offside. my brother thought he was onside. The replay showed he was onside. They didn't even need to draw lines. It was quite clear that he was onside. Then they went back to, was he fouled? And once they started looking at the different angles of was he fouled, you could see, yes, he was fouled. His standing leg was kicked out from underneath him. Then they went back to the offside decision again, just to make sure that there was nothing else at play. And then they gave the penalty. And again, Manchester City fans were even saying it was a foul. It was a penalty. And we were able to see that from the replays. So first of all, great decision by the match director to show the replays. And to actually show what the VAR officials are seeing. Second of all, I would like it in the future if we were actually plugged into their direct audio so we could hear the referee talking to the VAR and hear how the decision is made. But I like the fact that currently the commentators can hear the conversation and they relay that onto us. So they don't repeat word for word what's being said, but they actually say, right now they're checking for an offside, now they're checking to see if a foul was made, now they're checking to see if his studs were showing, that kind of thing. And I like that. It actually helps us through the process. I didn't feel like we were waiting an eternity to find out what the decision was, because we could hear what was being said, or we were being told a paraphrased version of what was being said. And it even says on the screen now, checking possible foul, checking possible offside, whatever it might be. And the FA Cup final yesterday was essentially decided on an offside decision that went to VAR. And again, the correct decision was made. And we saw the entire process from start to finish. The lines were drawn, he was offside. Doesn't matter what happens after that. If there's an offside in the build-up or if there's a foul in the build-up, it doesn't matter. And this comes on nicely to the handball. So the ball hit Jose Perez's arm in the FA Cup just before Tielemans scored his goal. However, the new law is if the ball hits the arm after deflecting off another part of the player, it's not a handball. So in Perez's case, the ball actually caught his knee, like his knee and his thigh first, and then bounced upwards and hit his arm. At that point, how's he meant to move his arm out of the way? That was the stupid decision earlier in the season. I think Fulham scored a goal against Spurs that was ruled out for a handball, but it deflected into the path of the player whose arm it hit, and he had, less than a nanosecond to move out of the way of it. Impossible. You just can't do that. So that law was changed mid-season, and I think people don't realise that law was changed mid-season. And the law's actually being changed again for next season. So Callum Wilson scored a goal at Anfield a couple of weeks ago now that was disallowed for handball. Under the new laws, apparently that goal would have been allowed, although there's still some conflict as to whether that is the case or not. I don't think it is still, from my interpretation, but they were saying on BT that it would have counted. I don't think it would have. But the one there is it actually bounced off Alisson and then hit Wilson again. I think if it bounces off an opposition player and then hits your arm, it's still handball. So long as it's an indirect deflection. If the player kicks it at you and it hits your arm, I think that's not handball, because that's deemed as the opposition trying to win a free kick, I think. This is where it gets a bit murky for me. I'm going to make a quick sub here before I carry on talking. Who have we got playing right midfield? I think I'm going to... I don't actually have anyone who can play left midfield. Huh. I didn't even think about this when I was checking the bench, actually. I think I'm going to have to bring maybe Sadie on to play left midfield. Oh, offside. Actually, I know what I can do. Since he just put the ball in the back of the net. We'll move Hudson Doncaster there. And we'll bring Sadie on to play as the shadow striker. Why didn't that work? There we go. So Hudson Doncaster will move out to the left. And Sadie will come on for Akram. We'll see how this was... Oh, is this live again? Yeah, this is live again. Never mind. So yeah, the handball laws now are very, very convoluted. I think they need to be simplified. I actually liked the method we had a couple of years ago, which was if it hits your arm, no matter what, it's a handball. That's easy. That's very easy to govern. Now, you will end up with perfectly legitimate goals being disallowed, but at that point, it's consistent because it's the same rules for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're attacking or defending. If it hits your arm, it's handball. Now, then you will have cases where, like in the Champions League final, players will deliberately kick the ball against another player's arm. Then you say, if it's deliberately kicked against your arm, it's not a handball, because there's no way in hell you're getting your arm out of the way of that. Plus, it's it's like simulation at that point almost. You're deliberately doing something to try and win a foul, which to me is against the spirit of the game. But that's, again, personal opinion. It would be nice to see these laws simplified in that case. But it would also be nice to be tapped into what's actually going on in the decision making of these handballs, offsides, things like that. Because the one in the FA Cup final, so many Chelsea fans, including Tuchel, in fact, after the match, were adamant that it was handball. And yet, by the laws of the game, it's not. Because it deflected off his own leg and hit him on the arm. At that point, it's no longer deemed to be a handball. I think that counts for if it hits a teammate as well and then hits your arm. It's not a handball, so long as it's not a deliberate deflection of the ball. If it's an accidental ricochet and then it hits your arm, it's not a handball. And I'm amazed that managers don't know this, because they're given briefings throughout the season from referees to make sure that they're up to speed with the laws. And they're either choosing to ignore that and trying to make it sound like they're being hard done by, or they just don't know the laws, which is very worrying. If you're a footballer, you're not expected to necessarily know every law, like every bylaw, shall we say, but you're supposed to know the basic rules of football. And if you're a manager and you're going to go in front of the press and complain about a refereeing decision, it probably helps if you actually know what it is you're saying first. That's, again, personal opinion. I'm a little bit spiky when it comes to things like that, particularly when it's managers that I don't actually like very much. So Klopp, for example, and Tuchel. I really don't like Jurgen Klopp. I just want to make that clear right now. I'm not a fan of his. I think he whines too much. I think he complains too much. Harry Baker's just scored, so this is going to be on the highlights reel now. I think he picks on things that don't matter. He's talked about the grass being too long, the wind being too high. Really weird things to try and explain why his team don't win matches. And he's even said, I don't understand it before. Like we're supposed to explain it to him. I don't know why. I don't know what that's all about. It was a good finish from Baker, by the way. Played chicken with the keeper, took it right up to him and then slotted it past him. And then just brought Harding on for Hammond as well. Try and short that midfield a little bit more. But yeah, I don't like managers when they complain in front of the media. I think a quick flick through the law book would have appeased him there. He would have realised it's not handball. And who was it? Chilwell, wasn't it? Was offside. Don't care whether it's his shoulder. Some people are saying that go back to the daylight law, where if there's clear daylight between the attacker and defender, then it's offside, but if any other part of the body isn't. So what you're saying is, effectively, so like a sprinter, for example, 100-metre sprinter, when they reach the finish line, they lean forward. So the only part of their body that's leaning backwards still is their rear end. Are you telling me that if a footballer, where 99% of the body that they can use to play the ball is in an offside position, but the 1% isn't, do you really want that to still be considered onside? That to me will cause more problems than it solves. For me, I think a good way of saying it, I think Arsene Wenger had this idea, was if any part of the body of an attacking player is in front of the defender, goal side of the defender, it is offside. Doesn't matter whether it's your hand, your leg, your foot, your left knee, doesn't matter. If any part of your body is goal side of the defender, you are offside. We live in an age now where attackers are fast enough that they can still get goal side of a defender, but be on the opposite side when the ball is played. We've got things like the t-shirt line now, which is where your shirt line ends. That's the part of your arm that isn't handball. And then that's also used for offside decisions. So a lot of people will say like his armpit is offside. But yeah, because you can play the ball with your armpit. So if any part of the ball, any part of the body that you can play the ball with is in an offside position, right now that's offside. That is the law. You can't argue with that, in my opinion. You cannot argue with that. It's written very clearly. VAR sometimes botch what is and isn't part of the body that you can play the ball with. And, people are talking about his armpit hair is offside, therefore it's an offside decision. Maybe don't get that pedantic about it, but at the end of the day, offside is offside. It's very much an on-off switch. And we're trying to make the law now more simplified so that it is more obvious as to what is and isn't offside. But you've also got to understand that the technology's there, so they're using it. And that's why they draw the lines. And that's why sometimes these decisions take a long time. Because at the end of the day, the right decision is made. And there's always bias when it comes to football. A Man U fan doesn't care if their goal is disallowed for offside because his armpit hair was offside. But if that was the opposition player and that goal had been given and then they showed the lines and showed that he was in fact offside, there would be fury in the streets. So you've got to see it from both sides of the argument. You've got to see that there's fans in both clubs. They're always going to complain. But if the right decision is made, it doesn't matter how long it takes to make it, as far as I'm concerned, because there are a lot of points on the line these days, and there's a lot of money on the line as well. And as soon as they made it positions in the Premier League worth different amounts of money, VAR was needed more than ever, because you still see the argument now of Sheffield United got relegated because of Carlos Tevez, effectively, and then the fury that came from that. Now imagine if they got relegated because they had a goal disallowed for offside, and it turned out they were actually onside. And if they drew the lines, they would have seen that the armpit hair played him onside. They lost hundreds of millions of pounds because of that relegation. And you could argue, yeah, they were the bottom of the league anyway. They deserved to go down. This is in 2006, I think it was, 2005, 2006, whenever it was. So a long time ago now. I'm not talking about Sheffield United this season. But if you're at the bottom of the league, you do deserve to go down. Let's face it, because you weren't the best. But if you could have stayed up, and you ended up not staying up because of a refereeing decision like that, and VAR would have solved that, suddenly you're all for it. And, you know, they were joking yesterday at Wembley. Gary Lineker suddenly loves VAR because it helped his team win the FA Cup. You can't just love it one day and hate it the next. You've got to remain consistent. And I've seen decisions go against Newcastle. The handball from Wilson when we scored against Liverpool. Thankfully, Joe Willock was a legend not long afterwards and kept us level. Or he scored the equaliser, I should say, and kept us level for the rest of the game. But even if we end up losing that game 1-0, by the law of the game, we deserve to lose that because he was found to have handballed it. As angry as that makes you, it is the law. You know, you've got to follow the laws of football. Yeah, that's really all I can say on it at this point. This is why I think fans ruin the game, because people are now getting death threats issued for following the laws. You know, people are being abused online because they followed the laws. And we're coming to a point now where players on the pitch and referees on the pitch are almost becoming scared to do certain things because they're worried about the reaction. And that is so stupid and sad that we've got to that stage now. The thing that makes me fall out of love with football is fans. It really is. And whether it's seeing someone who claims to be a Chelsea fan but can't even name the goalkeepers, whether it's someone who thinks that the offside law doesn't exist still because they last watched a game in the 1950s, but they want to talk about how modern technology is ruining the game. You know, just anyone who thinks they're arguing a valid point, but is just making themselves look like an idiot. And another one, again being a Newcastle fan, there was a guy the other day who was talking about Steve Bruce won Manager of the Month for April. Thoroughly deserved, in my opinion. We were amazing in April. We were amazing in March as well, to be fair. And even recently, we beat Leicester 4-2 and we narrowly lost to the champions of England. We are playing very, very good football right now as well. But because we had a bad patch when our two best players were injured, and because people don't like him anyway for whatever reason, people want Bruce to be sacked. So he wins Manager of the Month, and there's some idiot in the comments saying, this man never deserved to be a manager of our football club. Anyone who thinks otherwise is clueless. And people were saying, you know, but we've scored 7 goals in 2 games. And the guy's response, you're clueless. Everything that was, like, all these good arguments that were pitched towards him, all he could reply with is, you're just clueless. And at that point, all he's saying is, if you don't agree with me, I'm just going to say you're clueless. But who's the real clueless one in that situation? The one who thinks that someone who's earned the right to win a trophy for Manager of the Month and has been given that trophy should be celebrated, or the one who thinks just because he made a mistake 6 years ago he shouldn't be allowed to work anymore? I know where my answer lies there, and it's certainly not in the former. People are idiots. People online are idiots. Football fans, and I include myself in this, are idiots. No one's right, no one's wrong, but because of things like modern technology, not VAR, but social media, more idiots are now allowed to speak. And there's a really good expression that I like, which is, it's better to stay quiet and be assumed an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And that's what people do on social media these days, is they open their mouths and they make themselves look stupid. They never ever reinforce their argument. They never present an argument a lot of the time. They just make themselves look stupid. And I realise this has turned into a bit of a rant now, but this has been a combination of weeks, months and years of having to endure football fans, whether it's live at football matches and wanting to turn around and just yell at them, or whether it's on social media, or even, pundits in studios talking about how VAR is suffocating the game. It isn't. It really isn't. I'm more tired of hearing people complain about VAR than I am of VAR itself. Now, these things need to be given time. In the 90s, Denmark won the Euros by basically scoring a goal and then just playing keeper to defender, back to keeper, picks it up, rolls it out again to other defender, back to keeper, picks it up. That's why the pass-back law was brought in, to stop that from happening. The offside law was brought in because people were basically standing by the corner flag where the defenders couldn't see them. Ball would be played over the top, they'd run in, goal. These things have to change because the game was being exploited and destroyed by people abusing the laws, essentially. I imagine people in 93, 94 weren't happy that the pass-back law was brought in. There were probably people sat in a studio somewhere talking about how it's killing football. But eventually we grow used to it and we become accustomed to it and it becomes the norm. And that's what's going to happen with VAR. No one complained when goal line technology was brought in this country because we were all wronged by it. We were all wronged by the decision that led to goal line technology, becoming a thing. We've all been wronged by decisions that lead to VAR, but it's not a case of did the ball cross the line or not. It's now, was that a red card? Was that offside? Was that a handball? And it becomes a very subjective thing because you are relying on someone sat watching a television screen to have the same opinion as you. And if they don't have the same opinion as you, you immediately assume that they're killing football. And they're not. You're killing football for assuming that. That's my opinion. And again, it's subjective. I know you don't necessarily agree with me, and that's fine. But we need to try and create more subjectivity, more consistency in football to stop these things becoming an issue. Because yesterday, VAR was the greatest thing ever created. 2 days ago, it was likely the worst thing ever created. How does that happen? How does it go from one extreme to the other that fast? Purely because of who it benefits. Leicester City won their first ever FA Cup yesterday on 2 VAR decisions. Good. They deserved it. They absolutely deserved it. It was a goal that deserved to win a competition, and it was the correct offside decision that kept them in the lead. Right decisions were made. Nobody complained for Leicester. Everybody complained for Chelsea. What do you see from that? Now imagine it was the other way around. Imagine if Leicester lost and Chelsea benefited from 2 VAR decisions. Do you think the Chelsea fans would still be complaining about VAR? Of course not. Do you think the Leicester fans would love VAR? Of course not. It's so quick how it switches from one extreme to the other. And me personally, as I've said, there are times where I don't agree. There's been times where Newcastle players have been sent off through VAR decisions, and there's been times where opposition players haven't been sent off through VAR decisions, and I have protested against them. I have never said that VAR is stupid. I've always said, if that's not a red card, how come this one was? And again, that comes down to who's actually sat watching the replay and who's making the decision. If it's the same person every week, then you'll get the same decisions. But that's not possible because you have multiple matches kicking off at the same time. You can't have one person watching 6 matches at the same time. That is literally impossible. So it's never going to be perfect, but let's try and get the closest thing to perfect. And let's all stop complaining just for 5 minutes and let them sort out the issues and iron out the kinks and actually make it work. Because every time we complain, there's a knee-jerk reaction. They change the handball law, for example, and it becomes even more convoluted and complicated, and less people understand just what the hell it is that's happening. And actually, why can't I speak? At Anfield, after the Callum Wilson handball, they had Peter Crouch, I think it was Joe Cole, and Jake Humphrey, and none of them could agree on whether it was handball or not. They kept saying that under the new laws, that would no longer be handball next season. And then at the end of the show, they had, I think it was Peter Walton, who was the referee consultant or whatever they call them that day, finally came out and said, no, actually, yeah, that would still be handball under the new laws. And everyone on the platform was like, oh, okay. So they didn't know. They're feeding us misinformation about what is and isn't going to be handball next year. They don't know. We're trusting them. And then we get angry because of decisions that we have no say in anyway, and we also have no knowledge of, which just, yeah, staggers me. It really does. Anyway, rant over. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm now going to finish off the match here. We've got 17 minutes of the match to go. We're still 3-1 up. We've got one more sub in the tank, which I think I'm going to make in a second. I'm just debating who to bring on right now. Because we've got Sadler, Argent, Gadger, Hudson Doncaster and Baker all knackered. Argent and Hudson Doncaster are also on yellow cards. And this game is still finely balanced right now. Don't be fooled by the scoreline. They could score one goal and suddenly be right back in this. And we're playing some crazy passes right now, which is also worrying me somewhat. What are the stats? Oh, they've only had one shot on target and one shot in total and scored it. So maybe don't worry too much. Although if they get another free kick, then that's dangerous. And if we have a man sent off, that's also dangerous. Yeah. I'm actually amazed, by the way, that I filled almost an entire 90-minute match by talking about 3 things. I was genuinely thinking I would just spend the first half talking about that, then the second half would be a commentary. So to split it over both halves, I'm kind of happy with that. But also, I think I got a bit ranty halfway through. But there we go. It really does wind me up, though. There are times... I'm not the most socially out there person. I'm quite introverted still, which might come as a surprise to people, considering this is what I do for a living right now. But I don't like conflict most of the time, and I certainly don't like, what's the word? Physical conflict, so like face-to-face with someone. Online, it's a little bit different, because you can kind of construct a point and hopefully argue it well, but face-to-face, especially with an angry person, I'm not a fan of that. So at football, there are times where I've wanted... The only things I've ever said to people at football matches is what is offside and what isn't. Besides that, saying things like you can't be offside from a throw-in. That's my most commonly used argument at a football ground. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so I would love to be able to turn around and rant at people that they don't know the laws of football. I would love to do that, but I don't have the confidence to do it myself. So I just sit there quietly steaming instead. The only 2 people I do say it to regularly are my dad and my brother, and they tend to get both barrels because at that point I'm not just having a go at them, I'm having a go at everyone else who doesn't understand football. Commentators as well, that winds me up. When commentators are... Because again, it's about spreading misinformation. And I know they're not doing it intentionally and there's no malicious intent or anything, but when they're talking about their opinions like they're facts... Oh, sorry, break for a goal. Carter Hudson Doncaster has just killed the game off completely. So with that, I am going to make one more sub. I'm going to bring Argent off, and I'm going to bring Ruiz on. There we go. Let's just see what happened here. So Harding holds the ball up, manages to nutmeg his man there. Plays it to Tuttle, to Sadie, to Gadger. Really nice passing play. Hudson Doncaster on his weaker foot there, slotting it in the bottom corner. So yeah, commentators. They're talking about their opinions, and I think that's another thing that should be the case now, is commentators should only commentate on what is happening on the pitch, and they should not offer their opinions. That's not what they're for. Pundits, in my opinion, are there for personal opinions. So they might say at half-time, I don't think this was a foul. I think this was a foul. I don't think they should have done this. I think they should have done this. Commentators, and co-commentators especially, who are normally former players, should only be allowed to talk about what's going on the pitch. And they shouldn't be talking about opinions and things like that. That's not what they're there for, in my opinion. And they get too subjective. They start talking about what they think is a foul and what they don't think is a foul. But they don't say, that's what I think. They'll watch a replay, and the 2 I think are most guilty of this are Andy Hinchcliffe, who I'm not a fan of anyway, and I think Steve McManaman does it a lot as well, where they just go, that's not a foul. And what they mean to say is, that's not a foul in my opinion. But what they actually say is, that's not a foul. And a lot of people take that literally as, well, that's not a foul then. And, you know, they take that opinion and turn it into a fact. And it's not. It's an opinion still. And that's when you get people arguing about decisions and God knows what. And if you actually went and looked at the laws of football, you would see that under the law of the game, that is a foul. But, yeah, people don't do that. People don't do that, and it's armchair fans. I want to specify, mostly it's armchair fans. People who've never even set foot in the stadium of the team they claim to support. They're the ones who, in my opinion, are killing football right now. And it's fine to support... You know, I'm a Newcastle fan. I've only ever been to St James's Park twice to see a match. I've been to... Is it twice? Yeah, twice. I've seen them play Stevenage at Stevenage, and I've seen them play Arsenal at the Emirates. And I was supposed to go watch them play Palace at Selhurst Park, but my brother went instead. It was a 0-0 draw though, so I think I got the last laugh there. I would love to go see them play more, but I also wouldn't consider myself to be an armchair fan because, first of all, I'm biased like that, and I want to cover my own arse. And second of all, you know, I have gone to see them play as and when I can, but it's a 200 odd mile round trip. In fact, I think it's more than that. It's like a 400 mile round trip. It takes 3 hours plus to drive there, 3 hours plus to drive back. It's expensive. The train, for example, is expensive. I'm never going to fly to Newcastle anymore because that's wasteful. And I don't do well in cars. So I try and watch them. If they played at Spurs, or God forbid if they ever got to Wembley again, I would go and watch them there. And I'd like to consider myself... This is always awkward as well. I always, just don't talk whenever... when I went to watch them play at the Emirates, walking out of the Emirates, all the Geordies were really quiet walking to the station, whereas me and my brother, we could talk because we've got accents from the area, so no one's going to be like, he's an away fan, get him. And I just zipped up my coat and hid my Newcastle badge and I was fine. That's another sad part of football, actually. I won't talk about that right now, but I'll mention that in the future. And my dad was really quiet there. But in the fans, when the match was actually going on, I didn't want to say anything because the 2 times I've watched them recently was against Fulham at St James's and against Arsenal at the Emirates, and in both cases I sound like I'm from London or around London. So for all they know, I'm a Fulham fan or I'm an Arsenal fan who snuck into the Newcastle fans, and I feel like I belong in many ways because I am part Geordie, but at the same time my accent is my giveaway. And there's been times where I've just not wanted to say anything because I don't want them to go, he's a southerner or anything. That was a really bad attempt at a Geordie accent. That's another thing. I can't even do a proper Geordie accent, so I can't try and blend in. But yeah, Southern Softy I've been called before. And I really don't like that moniker. But yeah, it's just a funny anecdote, really. I don't talk during Newcastle matches if I'm watching them live because I don't want people to think I'm not a real Newcastle fan. I know all the words to Bladen Races, if that helps. And actually, when I went to see Fulham play, we went to a bar afterwards, a really weird bar. I can't remember the name of it. They had moving mannequin heads and stuff. If you're a Newcastle fan, you'll probably know the one I'm talking about. And at one point, they just stopped all the music and put on Bladen Races, and everyone started singing along to it. And at that point, I joined in because I know the words, and I felt like I was part of the crowd. But as soon as that finished, I went very tight-lipped again. And yeah, I'm a bit of an armchair fan in that regard. I don't go to St James's Park very often, but I know the laws of football, if that helps, and I'm a Stevenage fan who goes to every home game when I'm allowed to. So there's that too. Oh, that was almost a cracking goal from Baker. But yeah, I will say, I'll go on record as saying, fans kill football more than most things, apart from the Super League. That kills football more than anything else. VAR does not kill football. And there's 2 sides to the VAR coin in terms of people moan about you can't celebrate a goal anymore because of VAR. But again, if you know the laws of football, I have this conversation most with my brother because... Oh, I think Tuttle's about to be sent off here. I know, just a warning. It's fine. He handballed it, but I don't think it was deliberate, so it's not a second yellow. I have this conversation most with my brother. If you know the laws of football, when you see a goal get scored, you're immediately going through a checklist in your head. Was he offside? No. Did he handball it? No. Was there a foul in the build-up? No. Right, celebrate. It's a goal. It's not going to get disallowed. Likewise, if the opposition score a goal, before you start having a go at the defence or whatever, was he offside? Yes. It's probably going to get disallowed then. And then if it's not disallowed, then you can say, what idiot is operating the VAR today? Because they always name them while a decision's being made, so at that point you know. You'd be like, screw you, Paul Tierney. But the scenes at Wembley yesterday, half the stadium, when that goal was disallowed for offside, half the stadium were destroyed by it, the Chelsea fans. But the other half of the stadium, Leicester, celebrated like it was a goal. And it was the loudest I've ever heard Wembley during an FA Cup final was when that goal was disallowed. And they were running at a reduced capacity. That's how much it means to them. People celebrate VAR decisions now like a goal. It's incredible. That's what I love about these things, is if you know the laws of football and you know what's coming, you can celebrate a goal when it's scored. So Tielemans, there was no way that goal was going to get ruled out for anything. They celebrated it. They celebrated it on the pitch. They celebrated it in the stands. There was no need for a second celebration when VAR confirmed it. There was no VAR to confirm it. Every goal's looked at, don't get me wrong, but there was no waiting period while they decided whether it was a valid goal or not. And then the offside decision was also celebrated like a goal. And if Chelsea fans are sitting watching this video right now thinking he's wrong, why did you have to rely on a VAR decision as to whether you scored or not? You're supposedly the best team in the country. You've reached the FA Cup final. You're also in the Champions League final. And you only had 4 or 5 shots where you could have scored. And only one of them went in. And even then, it wasn't you who shot that went in. It was a kick from Soyuncu who bounced off Chilwell and Morgan and went over the line. If that's what you're relying on to score a goal, VAR is not the problem. Your attack is the problem. Playing a left winger as a central striker is your problem right now. And if you keep talking about your manager being a genius while he continues to do that, you're also the problem. End of rant. Second TED Talk. That was a TEDx or whatever it's called, the short ones that they do. I'm very opinionated and I'm very passionate about football, but I don't necessarily have the same opinions and agreements as other football fans, and that makes me a bit of an outcast in that regard, but hey-ho. Sadie there with a goal disallowed. I'm just going to commentate on the rest of the game now. We've got a minute and a half to go plus injury time. So I might as well just commentate on what's going on the pitch. People won't agree with me. That's fine. I know people won't agree with me. As long as we keep it civil, that's also fine. Those who do agree with me, I'll be very interested in fact, I'm interested in anyone's opinion, don't get me wrong. But those who do agree with me, I most want to hear from because I want to make friends. But also, if you don't agree with me for whatever reason, feel free to say so. That's totally fine. Just as I said, keep it civil. Football can be what you make it, basically. And so long as the rules are obeyed, the laws are obeyed, and you know the laws, you can celebrate things and you can enjoy the moments and all that good stuff. I was already anticipating Newcastle would win a penalty before it even went to VAR. As far as I was concerned, it was a foul. The flag went up for offside and I thought, okay, maybe it won't be given purely because of that. And as soon as I saw San Maximin was onside, I thought, this is a foul. They're going to give it as a penalty. Otherwise, they wouldn't check it. And again, if you know the nuances of VAR and you know how the system works, as soon as they started checking for offside, you knew they were going to be looking to see if it was a penalty or not. And I already knew it was a foul because the way he took out his standing leg. So as soon as I saw they were checking for offside, I just thought, well, this is going to get given as a penalty then. And I was already thinking, right, who's going to take it? This was 2 minutes before the decision was made. You know, if you know what you're looking for, you know the little tricks, you kind of enjoy it more. It's like when you know how a magician does his tricks, but you can still appreciate the trick. It doesn't destroy the trick. You just see how it works then. You can watch it and appreciate it for what it truly is. And that's how I feel with VAR now. I know how the system works. I know how they use it. I know the order in which they check for things. As soon as they start checking for offsides for something like a handball or a penalty, then they've already made the decision. Now they're checking to see if there was an offside in the build-up. As soon as you know that, you can start celebrating. Your team's won a penalty. Simple as that. Right, Gadget to Sadie. Sadie with the shot. Oh, off the base of the post. We're playing some really good stuff, actually, in this second half. I'm very, very pleased. Gonzalez Velasco there getting the rebound. Tries to cross it. Bounces off of... What's that guy's name? Holborn? Oh, Hudson. I am so blind. I read that as Holborn. Sadie deserves a goal. He's had some good chances. He had the one disallowed for offside. Now he's had one there that's hit the post. He had another one that was saved, I think. No, deflected over the top. He deserves a goal in this game. I'm really pleased we got him, actually. I wasn't sure if he'd be good enough this year, but as soon as I saw his stats, they were mostly green, I thought we need to bring him in. And we brought him in on trial, and he did well there. So yeah, I'm pleased we got him. Headed away there. Empty. Is he going to get there? No. But he is going to force the mistake. Oh, Ruiz. He should have brought that down. He didn't need to head that. He might get this back, though. Is he? No. And Tuttle there with the header away to Sadie. Nice first touch. He then goes with the up and under. Defender let that bounce. Baker's got it. Should have played that first time to Gonzalez Velasco. Lost the ability to speak again. And that wasn't a very good pass. That was just a hit and hope. We're pretty much at the end now anyway. A minute to go of injury time. It's been a good game. 4-1. It was a good game. We have got some players, Gadger, Sadler, Hudson Doncaster. They're all knackered, so I'll probably rest them for the next match. Actually, I say that. It's a very important cup game we've got next. So I think I'm going to have to play them. But this is why I'm bringing in backup now. So Sadie is more of a backup than Akinyemi, for example. Akinyemi and Baker are going to rotate a lot throughout the season, especially as they both prove they're natural goal scorers. But Sadie's more of a backup to Hudson Doncaster because we had no one else who could naturally play in that cam role. And to be fair, Sadie can't either, but we're training him up to at the moment. And he's a pretty good shadow striker, actually. You wouldn't think that wasn't his natural position. Because he does well there. Likewise with Emptage, we've played him a lot, but I still consider a 2 to be my first choice. I'm just basically running Emptage through his trials right now. I've brought him in on loan for a month. I probably will extend it till the end of the season, but he will more often than not be a backup. Just so we haven't got to play a centre-back at right-back, because sometimes that does sacrifice our play. But that was a good win for us. 4-1. We're through to the next round, which I think... Is this the first round we're playing in? Does it say that anywhere? Yeah, first round. So we're into the second round now of the cup, which is awesome stuff. I don't know if we get any money for that. But well done, lads. That was a good win for us. Yeah, I'm really happy with that performance. 4-1 win is always good. Their free kick was a good goal as well. So I'm not upset that we let that in. Perhaps the keeper could have got hands behind it. But when someone puts a 30-yard free kick in the top corner, can you really complain about anything? Maybe don't give the foul away. But are we really getting to that stage of don't give the foul away from 30 yards in case he pings it in the top corner? I don't know. I think that's a bit ridiculous myself. If you're getting to that stage of complaining, I think you've basically turned into my brother at that point, and no one wants that. Right, so we're done with the game. Baker with the 2 goals in the match, so we'll give him a nice pat on the back, pat on the shoulder. Superb in front of goal, awesome. So we might be losing some players still. We've got some players who are currently in talks with other clubs. So by the next match even, some of them might have gone. So Sadler's in talks with Western-super-Mare. Smith is in talks with lots of teams, but I've offered him new terms. I think he accepted them. Or at least accepted the terms. He hasn't signed the deal yet, obviously, but he might stay. And Gonzalez Velasco might also have left by next time. I'm hoping they both stay. If one of them leaves, I wouldn't be too upset. If both left, then I feel like there was a huge hole in our defence and midfield, in fact, and I would start looking at filling those again. But yeah, right now we'll see where that goes. But until then, the next match we've got is the home game against Wokingham in the FA Vars second qualifying round. Our first season in the FA Vars, so this is a big one. I might make that well, it will be the Tuesday episode, but I think I'll make that the majority of the Tuesday episode. I think we'll go back to a Wanna single match, and we'll play that match, probably extended. Excuse me, extended highlights. I have a really sore throat. I've recorded like 5 videos in 2 days, so you'll have to bear with me if I keep coughing in the last 30 seconds of this video. I am going to wrap things up here now though, guys. So like I said, some people might agree with me with my opinions today, some people might not. I'm not trying to like pass the buck or anything onto certain people. I'm certainly not naming individuals if I can help it. I think it's something worth thinking about with what is actually toxic in football right now. I don't think it's the technology, and I don't think it's the decision making really. I think it's the response to the decision making that could do with some work. But again, that's just my opinion. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series so far. Drop some comments down below. You can reply to the things I've said in the video if you wish, or you can suggest some ideas for tactics, signings, staff additions, anything like that. I'm always on the lookout for how to improve the team, so let me know down below. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. Hopefully I haven't lost any subscribers today. I doubt it, but you never know. It's amazing the things I can say and do to make someone unsubscribe. Like I'm not doing such and such in OpenTTD anymore. And like 3 people will be like, well, that's it, I've had enough, and they'll just leave. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all on Tuesday for the FA Vars match. But until then, I will see you soon.